Hey guys, I think I'm live. Awesome. Hey guys, welcome to the channel, welcome to the stream. My name is Will. This is C-Sharp walkthroughs. I'm just going to quickly share the link on my handle. Figured out that you have to use this one rather than just copy and paste the... Ooh, wrong one. This kind of short URL works best on other clients when you want to share. Typically just copy and paste from the address bar doesn't really work. And I think the preview will come up as well. Let's quickly just edit that. Sorry guys, it's just a little bit of housekeeping. I usually do this off screen, but because I'm not dual screening today, unfortunately, because I don't have access to control my second monitor, I can only do single streaming or single screen for the stream, and I think that's fine. Don't want to clog anything up. I'll just quickly check my dashboard. I think I'm live. Awesome, guys, welcome to the stream. Let me just set this one up a little bit. And then we'll get started. This should be quite a fun little project. My name is Will, as I said. Welcome to the channel, welcome to the stream. This is going to be a really, a very chilled kind of start to what is somewhat a continuation of this exploration of looking at SQL data access using C#. Do excuse me. But I'm going to give a little bit more context. I want to do a little project whereby, as you can see on the screen there, I want to put like this kind of bulletin board application, which kind of sits on a .NET front, such as UWP. And you know what? Let me go through the slides to help us understand what's going on. But before I do that, I'm just going to quickly check my OBS, make sure everything's streaming correctly. Make sure the audio levels are there. Should be the Droid cam. Yeah, that's it. Okay, sweet. Just always good to check my levels first. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into this. So what am I trying to do here? So I think this will be kind of a fun little series to explore on the channel. The concept's simple. It's a simple desktop app that pushes bulletin updates. Nothing more, nothing less really. Gonna be kind of like a prototype that I'll be building for the first pass really, or even for the main project. It's gonna be kind of like a demo-y example of making this proof of concept work. Let me just proceed with the slides. Might be a little bit hard to see. See if I can just make that go a bit bigger. Yeah, so what I want to do, guys, is... Can I get rid of this? I'll just shorten it a little bit. I want to have this kind of like UWP front, and the reason I'm choosing UWP for the front is because... Okay, let me give a little bit more context. If you ever worked in an office environment or like a company, like an enterprise company, usually what tends to happen is that you wouldn't find company information pertaining to the day-to-day operations, maybe even employee opportunities. You may have internal opportunities for like promotions or like applying to different roles within the company in-house. You wouldn't find that on like a network such as a social media, on a social media scope. You'll find it within a closed scope within the company, such that only certain privileged users can access this information. And by privilege, I mean like employees, right? So you may have your HR who is managing, say, all of the memos to do with internal opportunities. Let's say there's a role for, I don't know, .NET developer in company A. And the HR will then, you know, route all of the memos to do with this internal opportunity, and then say you're using a particular client front. Now there was one I used to use at a company that I worked at before, and I forgot the name of the client front, but it was almost like, for the time, it was, well, kind of closer to MSN those days. So imagine like an enterprise MSN messenger, and you would get a feed of messages from all your colleagues in the office, and this was quite a big site, so there was like many different departments and there was like many different offices and stuff, so you would get all these different memos coming in and out, and it was very fascinating to just kind of watch, you know. And so I want to kind of make that. So with that in mind, excuse me, I'm gonna take a quick sip of my coffee. Thank you. Sorry guys. So anyway, I'm thinking of not worrying too much about a scope outside of a local area network. And again, this is just to kind of make the scope of the project as lean as possible as well. But the reason I want to kind of implement a UWP front is because I do kind of like the deployment options you have for when you want to deploy your application to Windows 10. I like the deployment options. I like the ease of deployment. MSIX containerization is a lot more easier to do. For me personally, in my experience, using UWP as opposed to some of the other fronts. But with that being said, I do want to have, say, this encapsulated data access slash server layer, excuse me, whereby we have a data access layer which actually accesses a SQL database. Now, again, this is all going to be kind of proof of concepts, demo-y kind of prototype stage of things. So I'm kind of thinking the data access level is going to be somewhat coupled to the database. And the trade-off is that, of course, with a kind of more tightly coupled relationship between the data access layer, which kind of serves as an API to let us interact with the SQL database. What am I trying to say? So you can't really separate the two in terms of the overall stack. But what that also means, if I'm not mistaken, I'm using the correct words, the cohesion between the two is going to be quite strong. So that just means that we can be, in as much as the data access is tied to this data storage in that sense, we can be more robust with the system, if that kind of makes sense. We don't have to worry about the bridge between the API and the SQL database, because they're going to be kind of within the same solution in this particular example. Excuse me. The only thing that's going to be kind of out of scope of our solution is the front, so the client front, which actually displays all the bulletin or the memos. Gonna keep it real simple. And the actual, like, the server layer or the network layer slash a data access and the data storage, which is going to be via SQL database. That's all going to be rather encapsulated against the UWP front. So let's continue. I think that was the last slide. Actually, no, there's another one here. I actually skipped it. Did I? No, I didn't. Okay, that's the last one. So what we're going to do, obviously you've got a little page for notes. I'm really sorry about my cough. It's gotten better from the last stream, but I still need a bit of liquid and coffee and stuff. It's going to be quite a laid-back stream. I'm going to kind of look at how we're going to explore this. I was considering how to go about this little mini project, and I think it might not go amiss, you know, to somewhat go with this overall approach. Now, this isn't one-to-one kind of like UML representation. I'm probably taking a lot of liberties, and I haven't completed it fully because I'm still leaving room for alternatives that might come into play. But the overarching idea is that we have this database layer here, and we're going to have two main tables. Now, a quick disclaimer. So my SQL is, compared to my like .NET C# is somewhat asymmetrical, but I'm kind of bridging that gap at quite a pace because I'm starting to understand the importance of, say, if you are like a focused .NET developer using C# or VB, for example, Visual Basic or just .NET C#, you literally should know SQL and how to kind of communicate between the SQL platform, should I say, and your C# application. I think that's kind of a must, and it's such a desirable skill to have in the enterprise. So it's one I am strengthening these days. So yeah, as an asymmetry, I have a lot more experience with just pure .NET C# than SQL, so I may gloss over some of the terms, do excuse me for that. So I kind of try and speak at a high level here before we jump into this the project itself. Kind of want to keep these workshops at an hour a piece max, maybe like half an hour to 40 minutes. Or quick shout out, don't know if it's up here. Nah, I don't have the Telegram app here. So basically, what I want to do is I'll leave a link in the description. I think it's already there. My after hours stream. So I'm gonna have my .NET mastermind, .NET developer mastermind channel. I've already set up. Link should be in the description, I think. And it's just basically a forum for .NET developers of all experiences to share ideas. There's a respective chat tied to the channel, and I'm going to be streaming my after hours streaming, by which it's more of a even more laid back, uncut view, more of a deeper dive into some of what I'm doing. So keep up to date on that. Hopefully I don't know if I have access to the community tab, but if not, if you do connect with me on LinkedIn, I should be updating there regularly. I usually update on LinkedIn what I'm doing here when I'm streaming. Anyway, that's a little bit of housekeeping. So I'm thinking on the employee front, by employee, I'm talking about, excuse me, I'm kind of referring to an element in our employee table, because we're going to have two tables, and I'm thinking, obviously I might refine this approach, but this one basically stores information pertaining to the employees, and I'm going to keep it as lean and kind of as simple as possible. So employees will be identified by an employee ID, which will probably be the primary key of the the primary key in terms of, if we think about how to identify a unique employee, the concept is we give them these int-based employee IDs, and so you can just identify what employee is which. Very simple. Employee name, which I should have put name there, but I put just employee. But anyway, that will be represented as an nvarchar, and ismod will be a bit, i.e. a Boolean identifier to say, is this employee a moderator? Do they have certain moderator privileges or not? Okay. And underneath here, I just kind of thought we should kind of consider, and this is there's probably a multitude of better ways of doing this. As I said, the asymmetry between my SQL knowledge and my C# knowledge, it's kind of there's a gap there, but it's bridging. So there's probably a multitude of better ways to do this. But I think if we have some store procedures that allow us to query our database in the sense of adding a memo, and a memo is just one particular message on the bulletin board. If we can add a memo, if we can delete a memo, and we can edit a memo, I think it may not go amiss to have our queries here, or rather as store procedures, these functionalities. And then the main bulletin table, all it's going to have is records pertaining to the respective employee ID that actually posted the bulletin, the memo, and the bulletin message, which I think if we do something like an nvarchar 255, it just means we can put a few more characters, up to 255 characters, I guess, for our messages. It just means we can put more. There will be a character limit, basically, for these memos, and as there should be. Being a memo, it kind of implies a short form update, a short form news feed. So nvarchar should be nvarchar 255 should be enough for some string message entered at the front to be enough for a short little memo and stuff. I suppose we'd want to consider like limitations in server memory, database storage capacities and such. Just getting a quick one. I should probably just decline that so as to not get too distracted. So I'm just going to quickly take this because I am right now live. And I just got a call. We'll call back. And that's taken care of. Sorry, guys. Such is the nature of live streams. Just a friend of mine. Awesome. So, anyway, where were we? Kind of lost my trail of thought. Sweetness. Just lost my trail of thought, but it's okay. So that's going to be the kind of, at very high level, the database layer. And then, as I showed in my previous live stream, I kind of went through the data access via C# when you want to access a SQL database. And I only really scratched the surface, and really I'm going to just do my best to, if we have the iceberg that is, data access, SQL, C#, all that part of the stack, I really don't want to go too deep. I want to be quite shallow to just use what we need, and then I kind of want to spread myself horizontally to use what I can at that level for pertaining to this very simplistic demonstration kind of prototype I'm looking to build. So similar to my previous live stream, I'm going to build this layer, which basically is a little bit hard to understand just looking at this. So I'm gonna have to explain it. We're gonna be implementing this as like an empty project for the data access layer. As you can see here on the left hand side, already prepared a couple things. So I have here an empty project. I have a solution first, right? I have this Windows form application, which is gonna act as the front for the server. There's going to be some sockets functionality in the back end of the server, which is implemented as this Windows Form application, which will just allow us to basically speak to the client front. So there's going to be, hopefully I did that right. Yeah. So it's kind of like a one-to-many relationship. I kind of thought at a high level. So, if you had, say, let's just say it's a small business environment. I really want to keep numbers quite small here. Let's just say it's like 10, let's say like 20 employees in the company. And so it's still going to be like a one or more relationship. Let's just say one to many, basically. So one server to many clients on their own work terminals using the client front, which I'm thinking of deploying as a UWP application. That's going to talk to the server via sockets. I actually have some rudimentary sockets functionality I've been playing around with. If you watched one of my live streams when I went over the last video games development live stream, I did gloss over the fact that I was playing around with sockets, the sockets library offered by system.net, and the system namespace, the system.net namespace rather. And I got little bits of movement in that front. I have here on the left, as you can see, let's see what we got here. Basically, this very, should I say, prototype framework, it creates packets, handles packets. I was playing around with the client side, all in one solution, just to kind of make things easy to read. I had some sockets functionality for a client server topology, and then I'm just basically implementing my functionality in another class client, and I do the same with my main server functionality here, and then I'm implementing. That's the implementation, and I just basically call what I need on the server class here. Kind of keep things a little bit lightweight and modular. So I think I got it working to the point where packets might have been being sent. I did say they were being sent in that stream, but I'm not too sure. I need to check. But I really only scratched the surface. But I'm going to be bouncing off of this. But today, I really want to focus again on data access. I don't think it'll go amiss to kind of go over that once again, just like in the last live stream. And if there's time, we'll work our way up. So basically, the core aim today, let me see if I can get my notes up. Let's move that out of the way. So a simple approach, build a solution with an empty C# project and a WinForms.net framework project. So we've already done that. Main server front access. Let me just make that a little bit smaller. 36 might be okay. What's the color? My black is, yeah. I thought it might be gray, but that's fine. It's actually a bit, I want to match it with that a little bit more. Change it to primary. Not that this matters, but I kind of like it like that. So what was I going to make a note of? I completely forgot. Not going to lie. Completely forgot. But anyway, what was I going through? So yeah, what we're going to do. We're going to start with the data access stuff. I'm going to start with making the SQL database in a hot minute. And then we're going to work our way up. That's what I was kind of talking about a minute ago, I guess. We're going to work our way up to the data access layer implemented via C#. C# class, as you can see, in an empty project. I'm going to also have the controller class, I think, in the empty project. I have to double check that because we have the server here, which basically calls a function to speak to the UWP front. That's a one-to-many relationship. Somewhere down the line, we're going to have this controller, which I think at a rudimentary level, what might be cool is if we implement our session. So if we have multiple users, we're going to have like a session-based topology whereby for many users, we're going to be interacting with one database. So I was considering, off screen and in my after hours, I'm going to be exploring and taking the time to study some more sound networking practices and topologies that I may be able to implement in this project. But as I'm in the main YouTube stream, we're going to kind of be going things at like a higher speed, going to kind of gloss over some of the details. But I was thinking, just as simple as creating an instance of a list of iCRUD, which is going to be an interface which calls implementations of CRUD. So, if I got this right, create, read, update, and delete calls pertaining to our database. And I'm going to have different instances of the interface being called by the controller and stored in a collection. I'm sorry about that. Do excuse me. And all these sessions are going to be accessible via index. And what that just basically means is that if we treat each instance of these classes as sessions per se, then that just means that we can kind of order what users are accessing the database at one time, because again there'll be one database. Let's just say a company of 20 employees including moderators, and so we have up to like 20 sessions being managed by the server and the controller, but there's only going to be a need for one database. We don't need to have multiple. Probably need to be some kind of asynchronous functionality in the data access level on the server, because we might have a situation where we're going to try and access like multiple, maybe like 2 employees at the same time trying to push a post or something, a memo. We're going to have to deal with how that is handled by the server. And of course we have the client front, which I'm looking likely to deploy as a UWP application, and just some simple behaviors here: post memo, view bulletin board. So there's like a feed of bulletin board updates. It might be a feed, it might be just like an update, kind of almost like a polling style request situation. Delete memo, so you can delete, so the employees can delete memos via the client front, and edit memos. Of course, you probably want to edit memos in case there's a typo in your memo. So that's kind of the high level overview of what I'm trying to achieve here. I think this is going to be kind of fun, and yeah, let's get straight into work. Let's get our hands dirty. Let's get straight into work. So one way, now I understand that there is a multitude of ways compared to what I'm going to show you to make a sound data access SQL database. So between your SQL database and your C# application, there's really, really good established frameworks. What comes to mind, for example, is an entity framework. If you're savvy with that, you're probably going to want to go with that. Dapper is a good data access layer you can use. But for the sake and purpose of prototyping a very, very simple proof of concept, again, I want to flesh out all of this in my UML as like, if we have the whole scope of the project is this, I want my proof of concept for my demo to be like this. So basically, I want to just make it work minimum viable, basically. Then I can go a little bit more deeper into adding what needs to be added to the core stack. So with that in mind, let's see, make sure I got this right. So I've already gone ahead of time and I made this database file. Gonna make sure I've got the right windows up. So I'm going to just check this. Gonna double click on that. I don't know if it's a service or the or a different object explorer. I'm going to make sure it's the right one that we're on. So far showing no tables because I haven't made anything yet. I'm going to make sure I'm on the right scope, I'm on the right view here. I'm not too sure. It's either this server explorer or the SQL server object explorer. I'm not too sure. But I see add new table, so we should be fine for the most part. We'll just let that go in. I'm just going to check my notes as well while that's happening. Okay, for the sake of time, let's see if I can find something quickly. Because I had some stored procedures that I made yesterday for some demo projects. Demo project I was kind of testing on. I wonder if I can just open this on the ++. Let me see what I got here. Really is the insert and the update, but I can't see the insert one. It's like I lost it for some reason. Maybe it's a different file. Let me just see what I got here. Yeah, okay, so this is my update procedure that I wrote the other day. Just a very simple stuff. Again, going really shallow here. It's going to save a little bit of time. This is not the right one though, because I had read and insert, I think. I just want to save time. I don't really want to rewrite everything. I don't have to. Where am I? Quick maths. Just joking around. Let's see. December 2022 projects. I'm just going to check what I was working on yesterday. Player profile stack. So it would be this. Oh, maybe I didn't save everything, or I'm just imagining things. Database access. Player profile database. Okay, so I've got my gets procedure. Let me just open this as well. And I got insert there. And I guess I'll open this one as well. Just save me some time. Very basic stuff here. Nothing too complicated. Obviously, we're going to go more vertical as we proceed with the stream series. And obviously, my after hour stream, I'm going to be doing more studying, as you'll see live streaming me studying and diving a bit deeper into what we can do here. Let me leave it here for now. I'm going to minimize that. Okay, let's go ahead and create our table. Let's kind of populate this. So I was kind of thinking, let's make this our employee table. Let's start there. So I'm just going to edit on my TSQL employee table. I was considering having the employee ID as an int. We can keep that like that. I'll just rename it employee ID as an int. And what I want to do, if I just click that and go to the properties panel, let me just kind of resize because I do appreciate it might be hard to read. I'm not really zoomed in very well. Quite zoomed out. Zoom in here because all we need to focus on is what we're doing here. And I'll just go here. I'll stretch the view a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go on employee ID. It's already in type int, which is quite suitable for our needs. What am I looking for here? I'm trying to find it. Ah, yes, identity specification. I think it's this one. I'm gonna set this to true, and that will then allow me to access the identity incrementation. I'm just gonna increment by 1. I'm gonna keep it like that for now. I think that's a decent bet. And also, what do we have here? Again, this is not one-to-one UML kind of thing. I kind of took liberties, just so more for me to understand what I'm doing, really. Employee name, which I named wrong. I only named employee, but it makes more sense to say like employee name. For the sake of argument, let's just keep it like one name. I should really do like first name. Yeah, you know what? Let's be a little bit specific. Employee first name. Employee first. Let's spell that one. First name. Let's should we allow nulls? No, let's leave it as it is for now. And I was thinking mvarchar 50 because you just have a few more characters to work with. Let me just have a look at this. Mvarchar 50. I'll have to do mvarchar max for the other one, I think. Unless you can type it outside of this range here. And I'll just talk to myself because I wanted to use like mvarchar 255. I can't see it here. Unless you could just type it in. I don't know. Otherwise, I just do max. I kind of want to avoid max. I don't think you can apply indexing on mvarchar max for something in particular. I'm not too sure, but let's not think too much right now. 50 is enough for this. Employee first name and is mod. So is the employee a mod? I want to make this data type a bit, as in a boolean, and that's it. And so for the store procedures, so basically my approach, in my first stream, I actually took a very lightweight approach, again, this is a very lightweight approach, but what I'm trying to say is that I had SQL commands in the C# application, which really is far from ideal. I would say that one of the better things to do, the next step from that, is to rather, obviously you have a better kind of security kind of encapsulation, but if you want it to be a little bit more secure, I would consider calling store procedures in the database from the C# application to prevent yourself from calling raw C# code to actually say query the database itself. The logic, so if you do check my first stream on the SQL series C#, I was writing the queries in the actual C# application. Not the best approach, especially if you want to consider like SQL injection scenarios in a business environment. You know, how many times have we heard on the news, you know, leaked information here, this gaming company has its upcoming game leaked there. You know, we do need to consider security, And I wouldn't want a scenario where something like SQL injection takes place. However, this is still a very lightweight proof of concept. So we just kind of want to get things working first, and then kind of like a minimum viable product. And then we want to kind of work from there. But again, I think the next step up from having like raw queries in the C# app would be to actually call the have a reference to the store procedure, which actually resides in the SQL, rather than having the syntax of said queries in the application, if that makes sense. All right, so that was a lot of words. So let me just hit Control S. Documents. I shouldn't have those there. Where am I? I need to go to my 2023 projects. January, bulletin backend stack. We have 2 projects here, so it's not the bulletin board server that pertains to the WinForms. It will be DA demo, data access. And I'm just gonna leave these files here in the root for now. Just leave my database file, table file here for now. Employee table, just save it somewhere. Easy to find. Oops. Anyway. Okay, so if I'm happy with that, let's double check everything's there, no typos. Employee ID, employee first name is mod. We're gonna roll with this. Let's update the table. How am I doing for time? Okay, it's already been half an hour. Huh? Time flies. I'll update my database. It's so funny. This is such an anecdote where, like, you could be literally doing 2 different things and your perception of time is so different. You could be like playing a video game. I used to play a lot of video games. Not so much anymore. I used to. I'm more interested in the design and development of video games these days. You're playing a game, you're in a match. What seems like 10 minutes is an hour. You're there just like, I don't know, in school or something. And like a 1 hour lesson just feels like forever. It's just an interesting anecdote to know. The reason I say that's like 30 minutes already passed by and I just barely felt it. Where are we? Okay, so update completed successfully. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh my Server Explorer. And as we can see here, we have our employee table. I'm going to go ahead and make another table here. So let's go back to the UML. Let's just move along here. I'm going to make the bulletin table. I'm going to give it a name. Bulletin table. And there's only going to be, for now, 2 particular entries that we're going to be looking at. Now, I know I'm going to probably get this syntax incorrect, because I did this off screen before the other day, and I think I got it the wrong way around. Let's have a look. Bulletin message. Let's make this n varchar max for now. N varchar max. But maybe we'll impose a limit on the client front side so that you don't just add like 1,000,000 characters to a message or something. That's another way we can approach that. Let me see. Let's save this real quick. Is it this one? Oh no, that's the wrong directory. I'm just gonna save this if I can. If not, I'll just leave it for now. Just update the database. Wrong folder. 2023. January bulletin. So I kind of want to see what's here. Yeah, okay. Well, that's really fascinating. Anyway, I don't know about that. Anyway. Let's do that for now. Anyway, doesn't really matter. I'm gonna update the table anyway. Okay, so my idea here, obviously I was considering making this a foreign key with regards to my employee table, which I'll probably do in a hot minute. Oops. What I'm going to do first, just make sure I got everything here down. Employee ID, int. Don't need to worry about the isMod check, because the idea with this table is just going to store messages, and it's going to store the pertaining IDs of the employees that make the said messages, right? And I'm going to update. Before I do anything to create the foreign key, if that's the best way to go about, which is at the top of my head it is, what I'm going to do is just kind of create my store procedures first. Wait for that, quickly check the time again. And I will soon make a couple store procedures. I've already got a few, bit of syntax just to save time. Simple stuff. Let me just minimize, not minimize, but let me just resize this window a little bit. Okay, that's fine. I think that's done. Let me check if it's done. Let me update the Server Explorer. Oops. Let me just click on tables first. There we go. Bulletin table. We have employee table. So I'm going to go on store procedures. I'm going to add a new store procedure. I did this the other day. Just simple stuff. Let's start with updates. And we're gonna have as a parameter employee ID. Almost forgot the name of my field there. And we're gonna also have the message. What's it? Update. So every time we update, we're basically pushing a message, which is an nvarchar max, not 255 as it says a UML. It's actually gonna be max. And how did I write it? Bulletin message. Is that how I wrote it? Let me check. Bulletin table. Bulletin message. I'm gonna write like that. Might as well keep it the same. Why not? Bulletin message parameters. I'm gonna update the respective table. Just gonna change that. Let's target the bulletin table where it's going to store the messages. Then we're going to target, let's see, let's check it again quickly. Bulletin message. Just change this. Bulletin message. ID, and then have my parameter here, employee ID, and then I'll have here bulletin message. Alright, should be fine. Let me go here, let me just save this. 2023 projects, January. Let's keep this in the root. Update, so, okay. Stored procedure. Is this update? Yes. Just double check that. Sweetness. So that's that one. Got error. Oh. Got error somewhere apparently. Maybe that's a bit stale, or maybe it's in a different file, I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, it's not showing up for some reason. That's fine. I think it's fine. Happens sometimes. Going to create another store procedure. Yeah, let's make another one. Go to my get. So idea for this minimum viable product, this kind of prototype, proof of concept. We want the core function, the core functionality is to update, so to add a memo and to view the memo. It's like, you know, update and read. So update and get, basically. Or update and read. I'm gonna grab this one. Check that. Store procedure get, that's fine. I'll just change this one as well. Player profile table. So the idea, I guess the idea here is we only want to get one memo at a time, and just keep like sequentially. Again, I'm gonna keep the scale really short, really small. So there's gonna be like a limit to how many you can send. So like sequentially, you're gonna be getting, you're gonna be querying the database to get one memo at a time, either for the feed or just to select one. So this is just gonna be having one at a time in mind. What's my table called? It'd be the bulletin table over here. Just change that. The member. It'll be bulletin message. I should have got that right. Da-da-ba-ba-ba-da-ba-ba-da. Employee ID, I think that's a better call there. Oops, bulletin table rather. Bulletin table, accessing the bulletin messages member. For bulletin table, from the ID row. So employee ID, employee ID here, such. Okay. Okay, I'll save the store procedure as well. So stored procedure. Have I spelled that wrong? Get. This is the get one. That's that. Should be right. Don't know why it's showing an error there. I probably got something wrong, so I'll just update and check it. Oops, I'm so used to pressing Control S, I do it too much. It's probably going to be an error. Let's see what happens. Okay, let's update. Update completed successfully. Okay, that's fine. Not too sure why this is showing. Even though it shows 0, it is what it is. Assume that's alright. Let's update this. Does that update everything? Probably. I'll just do it twice for good measure. It's updating the database. I don't think I have to do it twice. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's already done. So I'll just wait for that to do. Update completed successfully. So I'm going to just go here. I'm going to go to my... I'm going to collapse this bulletin, my MDF file. I'm going to refresh it. I'm going to just check my store procedures are here. Yep, so I got my store procedure get. So I can, so basically store procedure update. post a memo, and then to view the memo, store procedure get. So that's the functionality, and we're going to call these functionalities from our data access layer via C# logic. Okay, it's kind of the idea of this simple demo for the data access and the database storage. Okie dokie. So, gonna move that out of the way. Let's refer to our UML quickly, just so we know what we're doing. Let me just add a new layer here so I can highlight what's going on. That's bright red. Make it a bit darker though. Okay, a little bit faded on it. Whatever. So we've gone ahead. We made our entries in the table in the sense of we created employee ID as an int, varchar employee name, and ismod bits, depending on the privileges of the employee. And this section denotes the store procedures we just created, but I actually only made I made two, which I didn't actually add the read one here. I actually forgot, guys. Sorry about that. So I have the add memo over here, but I don't have a read. Oh, but then again, that was pertaining towards, if we refer to this, I was pertaining towards the bulletin table. So really, technically, I should be showing the read here, like read and an update here. But obviously, this is just a rudimentary illustration of what's going on. So what we're gonna do, time is kind of short. We only have about like 15 minutes now. I'm gonna quickly go over the data access layer if I can, see how far we can get with that. Hopefully get something running, or at least set up for the next stream. Okay, so just make this a little shorter here. I'm going to kind of focus on the C# stuff. Where's the tools here? So bring it to view. Just change it to that. So let me see what's going on. There's that, DA, bulletin, that's my empty. Okay, cool. So I'll do, this is what I meant earlier when I said the database access layer is going to be quite tied to the database, in that I'm going to add to this project, which is the data access layer, I'm going to actually add the C# files themselves, which gives us kind of higher cohesion but tighter coupling. A bit of a trade-off there, I guess. We're going to go for, let's start with the interface. I'm going to implement this idea of data access via interface. So I'm going to say CRUD, create, read, update, delete. Keep it simple. Before we move on, there's something I'm forgetting here. Let me just check. What I want to do, let me just make sure I'm doing this right, guys. Let's see, view. Okay, this is what tab am I looking for? Is it data sources? I want to add a data source. I want to add a database. Data sets. Yeah, so what I nearly forgot to do, I want to add this bulletin db.mdf, my database file, as the data source. It's over here. It's already selected. I want to be able to show the connection string that I will save in application. This is quite a convenient string that will allow me to connect to the database via the C# logic. Gonna hit next. Yes, save the connection as bulletin db connection string. That's fine with me. Let's wait for the database stuff to retrieve. I want to show the tables and the store procedures. I'm gonna hit finish. Probably a good idea to just do this before we move on to the C# logic side of things. Wait for that to load. Sweetness. So that's the. Let's just see what happens. There's a lot of stuff on the screen. Let me just collapse a few things here. So let's go ahead and add our data source. As you can see, data sources tab, we have our bulletin DB dataset. And so now, if I'm not mistaken, let's see where I am. I don't know if it's here. I'll just click this quickly. I want to check something. But yeah, so in our app.config file for our DA/demo project, we have here our connection string, which you can see the data source, bulletin DB connection string, the one we just generated now. So somewhere in the logic of the data access, we're going to need the name of our connection string. I wouldn't advise putting the connection string raw itself, but rather we're going to use the name of the connection string, and we're going to use a functionality to actually connect, to get the data, the connection string, okay? It'll either be today or the next stream, but because of time, I don't know if we have time to do that today, but we'll see how it goes. Or if I do it after our stream today, we'll probably go through that too. App.config, so where were we? Oh, did I make an interface? I forgot. Oh, so guys, little mistake here. Can I just simply? I forgot to add the I prefix for the interface. That's better. Forgot about that. Sorry about that, guys. And I'm gonna just make the implementation class. So I add a new class. I'm gonna call it CRUD. Create, read, update, delete. Let me just check stuff here. Check my dashboard, make sure everything's fine and dandy. I never used that phrase, now I use it now. Oh my gosh, anyway, let's see what's going on. Make sure I'm still online at least. I figured out that when my computer's under a bit of load, it affects the stream, so I had to restart my computer before, just to be on the safe side. Yeah, everything looks fine, I'm still online. Sorry about that, guys. I can't do this off screen for now. Only using one screen. Where are we? So let's start with the interface itself. You know, my philosophy or the idea approach here, after doing a bit of research, is if you have as an interface kind of represents a contract, you don't have any implementation details in the interface itself, but only the member names and the signatures. As a contract, it would make sense for the contract to be public, I suppose, and it kind of I don't know what the right wording is here, but then you can then use it as a layer of protection for the actual implementation in a sense. What I'm trying to say is it gives me an internal interface by default. I don't know if CSharp always did this, or if it's an addition in a version of CSharp, but I'm going to go ahead and make that a public interface. And let's start with the basics. So we may not need necessarily to say like CRUD for the implementations, but for the sake of time, I'm going to have a void create, so we know exactly what's going on. A void read, avoid updates, and avoid deletes. Yeah, that's fine. Gonna go to my implementation, icrud. Obviously, there's no implementations for the read, create, update, and deletes that we made. So let's implement those. Now, they obviously have no functionality really at this point, so we're throwing throw new not implemented exceptions here. But as soon as we add functionality, we can get rid of these. But for now, it's fine. Oop, TV. So, okay, so since with our store procedures, we got up to, let me change the view here. In our store procedure, let me click that. Okay, anyway. We only have get and update. That will sort of pertain to create for update. So it's like you're adding a new entry in the database. And then get would be read, right? So let's start with read. Even though there's nothing in the database yet, I could manually add an entry just for the sake of demonstration, which is something I'll probably do if not today or the next stream, and then we'll kind of look at dynamically adding entries. But let's start with read. I think that's not a bad place to start. I do have some reference code because it saves me a lot of time. Put it up on screen. And this is reference code I basically put together myself for another practice project / sample project. Speaking of which, I may be making this available on my Bitbucket for archive purposes and whatnot as in a public repo. Should probably add it to source control as well. Let's see the namespaces we need here. The main ones we have to add is just this. Let's add everything, but it's really the system data stuff and the configuration namespace. As such, I'm gonna go and hit project. Gonna hit add reference. Gonna make sure we have the configuration namespace selected and anything else we might need. So we need system data. It is selected. That's fine. What is it? The system configuration. We're gonna make sure it's not selected, so I'm gonna select it now. That should be alright for now. So just make sure we can have access to the right classes. Let me see what we're doing here. Alright, I wanna kinda start with this. Say we have a function public void, set SQL Connection. This just assigns a global. It just instantiates what is a global. Actually, no, it's not. It's a past parameter actually that I'm instantiating. So we need this SQL object, this SQL connection, to actually establish a connection to our SQL database. We call it connection here in local scope. And of course, I have this global SQL connection. That's so weird. Must be being a little quirky with me. SQL connection. So let's go ahead and do that there. Let's make it a static SQL connection. I'll call it SQL connection. Declaration there. What I want to do, let me check out what I wrote there. Do I really want to put that in global scope? Is that necessary? Because I guess I could pass this from the server, but for now, let's not complicate things. Let's just say we pass some object either in this scope or in another scope, because it comes down to the argument of do you want to basically what this class handles. But again, for the sake of just saving time, let's just say we've already passed our SQL connection either from here or out of scope, and we're just going to instantiate it. So we're going to say equals the SQL connection. But then again, that's an issue because the thing is, this deals with, you should really encapsulate this in the using block, as I did later down the line, because of like memory resources. So yeah, let me just keep to putting this in global scope. I guess that's what I'll do here. Though I'm feeling it's a little bit redundant. But let's just do so for now, just to kind of keep it rolling. I'll go down to my read. Really don't want to be doing this, essentially. But I did that for more like speed and testing purposes. Now this is the way I liked doing. There's like two ways I went about this, but this is the way I like. So anyway, I'm gonna get rid of this. Won't need that so much. I'm gonna need to make a call to that in the interface as well, I think, if I want public access to that as set SQL connection function. Let's see what we've got here. So let's first using block. Using this, it's static, so we're not going to call it as such. Say SQL connection. Hopefully we can instantiate that. equals new SQL connection. We have to pass our connection string, which we're gonna grab via a little bit of functionality here. So say like public void get connection string. And remember, our connection string and name is stored in that config. So I'll just, this will basically, no point making it void, let's make it a string. So the return type of this function is string. We're gonna return let's make it really simple. Configuration connection string. Oh, got that wrong. Configuration manager connection strings index connection string. So we're looking for the connection string via, I suppose the index is the connection string name itself. Gonna go to my app.config, should be here. It's gonna highlight this, grab that, copy it, the name of my connection string. I'm gonna head back to my implementation class and gonna put it in these parentheses. There's a lot of space with this panel, taking up a lot of real estate there. Still got errors, let's see what's going on. Okay. So yeah, I'm returning the connection string found via the name over there. Line 44, where are we? Oh yeah, of course. So I'm gonna pass, actually you know what? Yeah, so I'm gonna call get connection string here if I can. That's gonna return the connection string. Is there any other overloads we have to worry about? Not yet. That's fine. Make another using block. Oops. Where are we? So now we're going to establish an SQL connection. Actually, no, we just did that. So we're going to use this SQL adapter. I'm going to instantiate this class. SQL adapter, data adapter was new SQL connection. Oh, sorry, I'm reading the wrong line. SQL data adapter. Now this is what we want to pass our store procedure call itself. But that's the thing. Yeah, I think I'm doing it the right way, because the other way I did allows you to pass store procedures. I think you could do it here as well. I'm not 100% sure. Let me just check this can overload. Select command text, select connection string. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I'm gonna probably try it with this first. Let me see. December. Just gotta check some stuff I did before. Start. This was yesterday. There's the implementation. Just gonna reference some notes. See if it's still here. Yeah, so there's this class I could use called SQL command. Probably does the same thing. But I was more inclined to using the adapter version for some reason. You know, let's see, what's the best way? Okay, you know, I'm gonna do it this way. I'm gonna do it this other way. See what happens. Instead of using opening this SQL adapter, I'm gonna use this SQL command instead and pass the store procedure. Let's cancel that. Save our command. SQL command. I think it wouldn't really be. I think there's two ways to do the same thing, really. Just I'm more short with find the overload. I think the overload basically says store procedures can be passed as well. Oops. Let's double check it. In any case, it should still work. Anyway, that's fine. Quite sure this will be fine. Let's get the name of our store procedure, which is, this one is for read, so we're going to call store procedure underscore get. And we're going to pass the SQL connection as an overload too. Makes it a bit easier to read. Okay, so see if I can define the command type in this enumerated list. And it's a store procedure we will call. Yeah, pretty sure that should be the right one. We have an issue there, I think. Come back to that. So let's go ahead and connect. Open our connection. I'll come back to deal with that command type bit. Yeah, that should be fine. SQL connection open. Oops. SQL. Sorry for the lack of, the fact I'm not talking too much, guys. Even that's probably better. It's just that I'm focusing a little bit. Parameter. So let's make a new SQL parameter. Just basically constructing this class so we can actually pass our arguments into the store procedure. And this will be the player, I'm looking at my notes, employee ID, I suppose. I need to check my gets. Is it just the one or is it both? Employee ID, that's what I need to pass. So, employee ID, such. Value. So this actual value of parameter. And let's have a look here. This will be passed probably most likely within the scope of the application, I guess. I suppose one way we could do this is that with each, if I go back to the UML, there's so many ways to approach this. I mean, just a very rudimentary approach I can think of, if I can find the right tab, is in the client front, So every application, every terminal, let's say that the example of a small company with like 10, 20 employees, let's say 20 employees, each employee has a terminal, each terminal has a copy of this client front UWP application. And what we could have here is that this front will have, let's see if I have it here already. No, we don't. So let's just quickly get a text here. Go to the text layer. Don't know what the size was there, it was a bit smaller than like 28. So one of the attributes we can have here, for example, let's say, for example, let's make it black. Just to match what's already there. Color here. So in the application front, you can basically construct your employee ID, which will be an int value. Might as well make it public for now. Keep it like the protection level as public. And of course, you want to have the memo to post as well, right? Which you write on the front. So it will be like, I'll try to make it for now. Be passed as a string. So what will happen is that from the client front, we have the employee ID, and they will only be able to store one employee ID on the front. And maybe this could be serialized in like a text file or XML file or something to store it via the login. Just one really rudimentary approach. And so with, let's say the employee ID is like 10, just an example. So this employee ID will be sent to the server. Then the server will send it to the controller. And of course, the controller will then pass it through the interface, which will access the implementation. In this case, we want to look at, we're doing a read. So we're kind of looking at these gets, I suppose. Read is more like for the get memo I'm looking at right now. So for this get memo, which we're kind of making as a read here, it's really hard to see. Should I do that right? Yeah, so again, the int is 10. It takes as a parameter 10, as we can see here as an int. So we'll be passing 10 here. And then via our parameter, we'll be able to look up the bulletin. I hope I wrote it correctly here, I'm not too sure. Yeah, I forgot to write it, obviously. I think I mentioned that earlier. So here, it would be like the procedure. I think I wrote it in the wrong place. Well, I wrote it pertaining to the employee table to add a memo. But to read a memo should be more like here. So maybe I'll just add it now quickly. So let's just get rid of all of that stuff. Because I'm in a text layer. So I should keep text in the text layer. This. I have something like, I don't know. Read memo, which we access via index. It will be an int, and that int represents the employee ID. So what will happen is that there will be some kind of lookup whereby all the messages will come up, I guess, and then we'd have to use the server or the front will have to take responsibility for ordering what is going to be shown on the client front. I don't really want the database to deal with that, nor do I really want the data access. They shouldn't really be too concerned with how the data is being used itself. Let's check this. Oh, sweetness. And I'm going to quickly check time because I think we just kind of reached the hour mark by 13 minutes. So I'm going to wrap this one up a little bit in a bit. Let's see if I can just do this block of code. So if that all made sense, hopefully. My nose is starting to get stuffy. I don't know why. What am I doing here? So, oh yes, so the value, go back to my notes. We're gonna have a, what's this one here? For now, let's keep it as a, I don't want to keep it as a global. Nah, I'm gonna pass it as a parameter for now. Int employee ID. Don't know if I have to typecast that to a string. I think it's fine for now. Parameters. And then what I seem to be doing in my notes, well, for starters, I need to call this execute non query. Probably want to use the async versions, but for now, I'll just leave it like this. And I'm just thinking, don't really need to add a list or a collection of parameters. Parameters get passed and then they're consumed, and that's it. We don't need to store that kind of data here in the data access layer. So I'll just call command execute non-query for now. I think we're done with this. Now we have to update our interface. Let's see which one. So this one is a string int employee ID with the pass. I think that's what it was. Yeah, that's fine. All right, so we're kind of making the headways on our data access layer. Gonna wrap this up in a hot minute. Again, we didn't get as, basically compared to the last workshop I did, this is about the same level that I got up to, which is fine. You know, we're doing this in segments. I wanted to start this project from scratch kind of thing with you guys. So from the next stream, should be following on from this. So we're not going to start from scratch from there. We're going to start from this, where we got up to now. This is probably going to be, if I go back to my UML, we're going to start looking at actually testing this in the sense of, I'll use the word debugging in the sense of just checking for, as far as the minimum viable project goes. Since we set up the database, we're setting up the data access. I want to make sure the data access can speak to the database. And then I'm going to start adding, once I can confirm that the data access can speak to the database, then we can add the rest of our CRUD operations, knowing that we can call our store procedures. Once we've got that fleshed out, then we're going to kind of start working on the server level, on the network layer, basically. We're going to be, not the network layer per se, but more the controller, which kind of routes all the requests via the client front. And then once we have this working via like a minimum viable kind of level, I'm going to go ahead and create the UWP client. That'll probably be another subsequent stream. And that's going to use sockets in order to speak to the data access layers. As I showed you guys earlier, I do have some rudimentary sockets notes basically that I've been writing. I wrote like off screen for another project, which I'm going to kind of play around with. I'm going to be studying some topologies and networking practices so we can kind of have reliable networking functionality up and running via the sockets library. Guys, thanks for joining me for this live stream. I hope you learned a thing or two, if not found this somewhat entertaining, if not educational. And yeah, you feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. My name is Williams, and there's going to be more of this content on the channel. Do stay tuned for the .NET Dev Mastermind group, which is going to be my forum that I'm launching on Telegram. Already fleshed it out, link in the description. Just have to get the content ready and the streams organized and tested so that I can start live streaming there for the after hours. Thanks, guys. Take care. God bless. Hope you have a great 2023 first week. See you next time. Let's end the stream.